You did not come here to get better. I want to say that again, slowly, because everything else I tell you today rests on it. You did not come here to get better. Not to be improved, not to be polished, encouraged, motivated, or given 7 tips for a stronger week. If that's what brought you, I'm going to disappoint you in about 90 seconds. And I'd rather do it now than waste your time. What God is doing in you right now is not a renovation. It's a replacement. There's a difference, and the difference is everything. A renovation keeps the frame and changes the paint. A replacement tears the thing down to the ground and builds something that was never there before. And I know which one you've been praying for. You've been praying for the paint. You've been asking God to help you stop doing that thing, to make you a little more patient, to take the edge off the anger, to fix the part of you that keeps embarrassing you. You've been asking Him to manage the old you. He's not going to do it. I say that as a friend. He's not going to manage the old you, because He never agreed to keep him alive. That man, that woman you've been carrying around, the one who answers to the old name and reaches for the old comfort and shrinks in the old rooms. God is not in the business of counseling that person. He's in the business of burying him. And what rises after that burial has different blood in it. Now listen, when I say your Dana is being rewritten, I'm not talking about biology. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not going to pretend to be one. I'm talking about the thing underneath your behavior. The code. The instructions your soul has been running on since before you were old enough to question them. Because here's the truth most people never sit with. You don't behave out of your decisions. You behave out of your design. Your decisions are just what your design looks like when it's under pressure. Think about that for a second. You can decide to be calm. But when the phone rings at 11 at night with that name on the screen, you don't perform your decision, you perform your design. You can decide to trust God with money. But when the car makes that noise on the highway, the fear that shows up isn't consulting your decision. It's older than your decision. It's written deeper. That's why willpower keeps failing you. That's why you can be genuinely sincere on Sunday and genuinely defeated by Thursday. And you cannot understand how both of those people live in the same body. They don't. One of them is the design, and one of them is the decision. And the design wins every single time. So God does something that no self-help book on any shelf in America can offer you. He doesn't argue with your decisions. He goes underneath them and rewrites what you were running on. Let me take you to a man who lived his entire life as a diagnosis. His name was Jacob. And in his world, a name wasn't a label your parents liked the sound of. A name was a verdict. A name told you what you were. His meant heel grabber, supplanter, the one who takes what belongs to somebody else. He came out of the womb with his hand wrapped around his brother's foot. And they looked at that baby and said, "This one will be a grabber. Call him Grabber." And here's what will break your heart if you let it. He spent the next 97 years proving them right. He grabbed the birthright with a bowl of soup while his brother was starving. He grabbed the blessing with goat skin on his arms and a lie in his mouth while his father was going blind. He ran. He worked 14 years for a woman and got outmaneuvered by a man craftier than he was. And even in exile, he grabbed flocks, herds, advantage, position everywhere he went. He became what his name said he was. Do you understand what I'm describing? He wasn't failing. He was performing his design. Nobody had to make Jacob grab. Grabbing was the code. And I know some of you are getting quiet right now, because you know exactly what your name has been. Nobody wrote it on a birth certificate. They wrote it on you anyway. Too much. Too sensitive. The difficult one. the one who ruins things, the one who never finishes, the one who was an accident. Somebody said a word over you when you were small, and you have been performing that word for 30 years and calling it your personality. That's not your personality, beloved. That's a name you never agreed to and never learned how to take off. Now, the night at the river, Jacob is going home. His brother is coming to meet him with 400 men. And Jacob doesn't know if that's a welcome party or an execution. So he does what a grabber does. He arranges. He divides his camp into two, so if one gets attacked, the other survives. He sends gifts ahead in waves to soften the man's heart. He sends his wives and children across the water. He works the angles all night. And when he has finally run out of angles, he is alone, on the wrong side of the river, with nothing left to grab. That's when the wrestling starts. And they wrestle until the sky starts turning gray. A whole night, this man fighting for his life against someone he cannot see clearly. And when it's almost over, the stranger touches his hip and puts it out of joint one touch. And everything Jacob ever relied on physically is gone. But it's what happens next that I need you to catch. Because this is the whole message. The stranger asks him a question. And it's not a question he needed the answer to. He asks, "What is your name?" Now think about that. Heaven doesn't need information. This man had been to that river of God before. He'd seen a ladder open over his head. He'd heard the voice. This wasn't a stranger needing a name for the records. He was making Jacob say it out loud. And after 97 years of dodging that question, because remember, the last time an old man asked him who he was, he lied. He stood in front of his blind father and said, "I am Esau this time." With his hip destroyed and his strength gone, and the sun about to come up, he finally tells the truth. "Jacob, my name is Grabber. That's what I am. That's what I've always been." And heaven said, "Not anymore. I need you to see the order of that." Because the order is where people miss it. The name didn't change until he confessed the old one. He didn't get Israel until he admitted Jacob. God did not rewrite the man who was still pretending he didn't need rewriting. That's why so many believers stay stuck for years in the same cycle. They want the new name without the confession. They want God to give them a new identity while they're still defending the old one in every conversation. Still explaining it. Still saying, "That's just how I am." Still building a whole theology around the wound so they never have to hand it over. You will not be rewritten in the areas where you're still arguing that you're fine. And notice what he walked away with. He didn't walk away stronger. He walked away limping. He came to that river as a fast man, and he left as a slow one for the rest of his life. Every step he took was a sermon about the night he stopped being who he used to be. That's what a real rewrite does. It doesn't just add something. It takes something. There is always a limp. And if you have been asking God why the last 2 years have cost you so much, why you've lost the sharpness you used to have, the hustle, the edge, the ability to charm your way through anything you weren't robbed, that edge belonged to the old code. He is not going to let you carry the grabber's hands into the new man's life. Let me bring this into your week, because I don't want this to stay in the Bible. There's a man watching this who got the promotion. Real office. His name on the door, and he still gets that feeling in his stomach on Sunday nights. The same feeling he had at 14 when the man who was supposed to raise him said he'd never be anything. He's making 6 figures, and he's still answering to a name a bitter man gave him in a kitchen 30 years ago. There's a woman watching this who is loved, genuinely loved. Her husband is good to her, and every time he's quiet, Some part of her starts running the scenarios. What did I do? He's leaving. Here it comes. And she knows it isn't him. She knows this house isn't that house. But the design doesn't care what house you're in. There's somebody watching this who has been clean for a long time and still drives the long way home so they don't pass a certain street. None of you have a discipline problem. You have a code problem. And you have been trying to fix with effort what only God can fix with surgery. I've watched people spend years attacking this from the outside. They move states, new city, new church, new job, new haircut, new phone number. And 8 months later, they are sitting in a different kitchen, having the exact same argument with a different person. And they cannot understand how the trouble found them again. It didn't find them. It rode along in the passenger seat the whole way. You can change the address. The tenant travels. That's why deliverance is not geography. That's why a fresh start is not a new beginning. A fresh start gives the old man a clean room to redecorate. A new beginning gives you a different man. And people confuse the two constantly. And then they blame God when the fresh start wears off, around month 5. Listen, if you could have fixed this with effort, you would have already. Look at the evidence of your own life. You've made the promises. You've journaled it, fasted about it, cried about it at the altar with real tears and real sincerity. And it came back anyway, not because your faith was fake, but because you were doing repair work on a foundation that was never meant to hold the house God is building. He's not asking you to try harder this year. That's the part that offends us, because trying harder at least lets us keep the credit. He's asking you to let him take something out. Now watch what he does with Abram. 99 years old. God has already promised this man a nation, and there's still no child in the house. And when God comes to seal the covenant, he doesn't start with the baby. He starts with the name. Abram becomes Abraham, 1 letter. That's it. And in that language, the letter he put in the middle of that man's name carried the sound of breath. God took his own breath and pushed it into the center of who this man was. And from that day forward, the old man could not say his own name without releasing it. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Every time somebody called him, they were prophesying. Every introduction was a declaration. He didn't have to fight for the new identity, because the new identity was now in his mouth every day of his life. That's what God does. He doesn't just forgive the old self. He renames the thing so completely that even your own tongue starts working for heaven instead of against you. And here's what I've learned watching people go through this, and watching myself go through it. The rewrite feels like dying. Because it is. The prophet Ezekiel heard God describe it with terrifying simplicity. I will take out the heart of stone, he said, and I will give you a heart of flesh. Now people quote that like it's a gentle thing. It isn't. Read it again. That is not a repair, that's an extraction. Something is coming out of you, and it's the thing that has kept you safe. Because a heart of stone is not a punishment, a heart of stone is armor. You didn't grow it because you were evil. You grew it because something happened, and you needed to not feel it again. And now, God is asking to take the armor. That's why some of you have been crying for no reason in your car. That's why the show you used to love feels empty now. That's why you can't laugh at the jokes you used to laugh at. And your friends think you've gotten strange and holy and dull. You haven't gotten dull. You're getting nerve endings back in a place that was numb for 20 years. And new nerves hurt. If you feel raw right now, don't run from it. Raw means the stone is coming out, and I want to be careful here. Because I'm not asking you to romanticize pain. I've sat with too many people in too many living rooms to do that. But there is a difference between the pain that's destroying you and the pain that's delivering you. And you can tell them apart by what they leave behind. One leaves you smaller and more suspicious. The other leaves you softer toward the very people you used to keep at arm's length. If you have caught yourself in the last few months feeling something for a person you used to write off, the difficult relative, the neighbor everybody avoids, the version of yourself you see in somebody else's mistakes, that's not weakness moving in. That's the flesh heart taking its first beats. And I have to pause here, because I know what happens in this exact moment. Something in you is stirring, you feel it, and in about 4 minutes you'll close this video and go back to the dishes. And by tomorrow morning, the feeling will be gone, and you'll be right back to running the old code. That's the pattern. Recognition without a path is just entertainment, and I refuse to be entertainment for a person God is trying to rebuild. My name is George. I make these messages for people who have known their whole lives that something was different about them and never once had the language for it. And I put everything I actually know about this process into one place, so you don't have to wander another decade. The calling is wide. The instructions reach only a few. If there is a burning in your spirit right now, do not minimize it. That is the sign. The secret protocol delivers the 7 keys God reserved for those who are ready to unlock what was sealed inside them before birth. The full audiobook is included to absorb in depth, in your own time, in the presence of God, and the Awakening Map, the bonus guide that reveals the 5 stages of spiritual awakening and positions you with precision at the exact point of your journey today. Link pinned in the first comment. For a limited time only, because not every door stays open forever. Now let me tell you the part nobody warns you about. The old self does not go quietly. He comes back and calls your name. There was a fisherman named Simon. Loud, impulsive, quick to swear a thing he couldn't deliver. Jesus looked at him early and said, "Your name is going to be Peter Rock." And for 3 years that man walked around with a name he had not grown into yet. And everybody knew it. He sank in the water. He said the wrong thing on the mountain. He swung a sword at a man's head. And then came the courtyard. Cold night. Charcoal fire. And a servant girl looks at him and says, "You were with him." And the rock says, "I don't know the man." 3 times, with cursing, until the rooster tore the night open and he ran out into the dark and wept like a child. Now here's what I want you to see. That courtyard was not Peter losing his new name. That was the old code making its last, loudest argument. Because look what Jesus does after the resurrection. He doesn't send a letter. He builds a fire on a beach. A charcoal fire, the same smell. The exact smell that had been in that courtyard. He puts that man back in the scene, and he asks him 3 times. Once, for every denial, "Do you love me?" He rewrote him at the sight of the failure. That's how God works, and it's why the enemy fights so hard to keep you away from the scene. You think the healing happens by never going near it again. Heaven says the new man has to stand in the exact place where the old man collapsed, and hold his ground. And there's Saul, walking the Damascus road with legal papers to arrest believers. And light knocks him flat, and the voice asks, "Why are you persecuting me?" And that man who was so certain, so educated, so violently sure, sat blind in a house for 3 days, and would not eat. 3 days. Where have you heard that number before? The old man went into the dark for 3 days. And what walked out of that house had a different name, a different mission, and a different code. And he spent the rest of his life writing letters from prison cells, with more joy than he ever had with power. Now let me answer the question you're actually asking. Why watch this every day? Because the rewrite is not a lightning strike. It's a repetition. God fed a whole nation in the wilderness with bread that came down every single morning. And he gave them one rule about it. Don't store it. Don't stockpile. What you gather today feeds you today, and tomorrow you come back out and gather again. And the ones who tried to hoard it woke up to something rotten. He wasn't being difficult. He was breaking the code. Those people had spent 400 years with a slave's operating system: grab, hide, hoard, survive, trust nobody. You don't fix 400 years with one sermon. You fix it with a morning that repeats until the body believes it. That's why Scripture doesn't say be transformed by one powerful experience. It says be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewing, present tense. Ongoing. Again tomorrow. And I'll be honest with you about how that looks in a normal American week. It's not dramatic. It's you in the truck at 6:40 in the morning with the heat running, saying out loud who you are now before the day tries to tell you who you used to be. It's you at the kitchen sink refusing to finish the sentence that starts with "I always." It's you catching the old thought at 4 in the afternoon and saying, "Not my name anymore." Small, boring, repetitive, and absolutely fatal to the old man. Because understand how the old code was installed in the first place. Nobody sat you down and taught it to you in one afternoon. It got in through repetition. The same tone of voice at the dinner table for 11 years. The same door closing. The same look on the same face every time you brought home something you were proud of. Drop after drop after drop, until it wore a channel in you. And that channel is the one your thoughts still run down at 2 in the morning, without asking permission. You don't undo 11 years of drops with one big splash. You undo it with drops that go the other direction. That's the whole reason I tell people to come back to a message like this daily, and not weekly. Not because I need the view. I want the channel to change direction while you're not looking. I want you to be 40 days into it, and catch yourself thinking a thought you didn't manufacture, a thought that sounds like heaven, and arrived on its own, and realize the riverbed moved. That's the day you'll know something structural happened. Not the day you felt the goosebumps. The day the default changed. So how do you know it's actually happening? Let me give you what I've watched over and over. First, the old sins stop being fun before they stop being available. That's the earliest sign, and almost nobody recognizes it. You still do it and you don't enjoy it. The taste is gone. That's not depression, that's your appetite being rewritten. Second, people start leaving without a fight. No blow-up, no betrayal. Just a slow drift, calls not returned, and a strange quiet where a friendship used to be. Those relationships were built on the old code, and when the code changes, the connection loses its plug. Third, you can't lie the way you used to. The small ones, the social ones, the ones everybody tells. They come up your throat and stick there. Fourth, silence stops scaring you. There was a time you had to have noise in the house. Now you drive 20 minutes with the radio off and don't notice. Fifth, and this is the one that frightens people, you start losing interest in being understood. You stop explaining yourself. You let people be wrong about you. That's not pride. That's what happens when a man stops needing the old name confirmed by a crowd. And sixth, your prayers get shorter and heavier. Fewer words, more weight. If 3 or more of those are happening in your life right now, you are not falling apart. You are being taken apart, on purpose, by hands that know what they're doing. Now hear me on this last thing, because I don't want you to leave with the wrong picture. You are not being asked to kill the old self. You couldn't if you tried, and God knows it. Jacob didn't defeat the one at the river. He got his hip broken and he held on. That's all. He held on until the change came. Your job is not the surgery. Your job is to stay on the table. And I know it's taking longer than you wanted. I know you thought that by now you'd be the finished version, but understand something about the man at the river. He asked for a blessing. He got a name and a limp and a nation, and he did not get to choose which parts came first. So here's what I want from you in the comments, and be specific, because a vague comment helps nobody. Tell me the old name. Not your legal name, the name you've been answering to. Say it plainly. The difficult one. The failure. The one who always leaves. And then tell me one moment. One recent moment where you noticed you didn't answer to it. A phone call you didn't make. A room you walked into without shrinking. One line. That's all I need, and read the others. Because somebody in that comment section is going to write your exact name, and you'll realize you were never the only one carrying it. This channel is created without ads and without platform income. If these messages have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you during a difficult moment, and you'd like to support this work, you can use the QR code on your screen or the contribution link in the pinned comment. Thank you for walking this path with us. And when you come back tomorrow, because I believe you will come back with your hip already out of joint, come back as the one who stopped negotiating. There is a sunrise on the other side of that river, and the man it's waiting for has a different name than the one you've been signing.